Go ahead. Are we recording? We're not recording yet, right?
We're streaming in progress.
Yep. All right. Good evening. Welcome to Sunbury Services Committee, August 3rd, 2022. Can I get a roll call, please?
I'll do that. All right, Mr. Damon?
Here.
Mr. Grumney?
Here.
Mr. St. John?
Here.
Mr. Neff?
Here.
We have a quorum.
I would like to make a motion to approve approval of the minutes from our July 6th meeting. Can I get a second? Second. Second by Mr. St. John. Can I get a roll call?
All right, Mr. Damon?
Yes.
Mr. St. John?
Yes.
Mr. Grumney?
Yes.
Mr. Neff?
Yes.
Motion approved.
All right. And in something I'm not used to seeing, we have a visitor tonight, Services Committee. Chief, would you mind coming up and sharing with us?
Sorry.
Well, thanks for having me, everybody. A couple of you know, I know, and a couple of you I don't know. So if you don't know me, I'm Chris Kovach. I'm your fire chief. I don't think I've met you two yet, but we'll take care of that afterwards. So Mr. Ghost thought it would be important for me to come and kind of just give the Services Committee an update of where we're going with the district. So the papers I've got for you guys there are for you to follow on tonight if you want to take and review. There's a lot of information. I kind of struggled. I put a PowerPoint together initially and decided, you know what, that's just not going to do it. We're going to hit the real, like, I'll call it the 50,000 foot view. You guys want the real up close and personal, the whole report that I'm going to go over is on our website. Feel free to download it, call me with questions. I'm always available. So seriously, pick up the phone and call me. It's a lot to digest, it's a lot to go over. So we'll start with a little bit of a history here. So back in 2019, myself and the fiscal officer, Greg Roy, started talking with the fire board about the need for an additional fire station or fire stations. We met quite a bit of resistance on our hill. Seems to be we're at that point where everybody's growing, but nobody really wants to admit it yet. It's gotten a little bit better over the last few years. But so these conversations started way back in 2019. We had a couple work sessions. We had multiple meetings with other organizations, including Delaware County EMS and Sheriff's Office. Because the goal is always to be, no matter what we do, we want to be shared resources. We want to be, the plan is to put a medic unit wherever we go with us. Whether the sheriff is in or out, I don't know. That changes almost on a daily basis. So I'll let you know right now. It's a no. That could change in a week. And we also started discussing the property, Nationwide Realty set aside property for us somewhere in the North Star area back in the early 2000s. That still holds true. We got to a certain point with them where we were ready to do a lot split, and then the fire board kind of put the brakes on and said, let's take a look at all of our options and see what's going on. So back in 21, August 21, so about a year ago, we contracted with the Ohio Fire Chiefs Association. They have a couple different committees. One of those committees is a consulting service. And what that consulting service did was looked at where would be the best location for a fire station or fire stations, and are we ready and do we need them? So the report came in May of 2022. Came in late, came in about 6 months late. But I can't attest that they weren't twiddling their thumbs. This was constant work between them and the fire department. Weekly or daily emails and phone calls to these guys. The problem was, and they admitted this was the most complex one that they've done. Because every time we talked, something changed. And you guys know that. There's always a new development popping up. There's always something else coming from zoning. And we're not dealing with just one entity. We're unique with the fire district. We're dealing with 4. And 3 of them are seeing pretty rapid change. One of them, I think their time is short, but it's coming. So we entered into the contract with them. The report was finalized in May of 2022. The thing I want to point out, if you read the report, is it's old data already. That data only captured to the end of 2020. So we've got over a year and a half's worth of data right now that honestly all of the strength car cases even more. So the report looked at data from 2018 to 2020. Wish we could have looked at a little bit more, but quite honestly, before I came, data records and stuff like that was a little bit of a mess. What it looked at was local government and the different local governments. Any sort of agreements or obligations outside, we don't contract with anybody else, it's just for communities. It looked at our service delivery, so it looked at run volumes, the type of runs we were going on, highlighting specific hotspots, if you would, where our certain target areas. We did a full risk assessment of all 4 communities. That involved any specific high hazard areas, medium, low hazard areas, all the commercial, all the business, retail, stuff like that. Go along here. I really don't need to follow, but I need a placeholder. Community growth and economic development, and this one was the one that posed quite a challenge. They looked, I believe they talked, they may have talked with you, I'm not sure. They talked with Berkshire, they talked with Lena, they went through and Wrong Community, Delaware County Regional Planning. They did talk to a couple other individual people inside the communities in regards to what could be developing and what could be coming. They looked at population growth, land use, expected population growth. So really getting building permits, which is good. You guys have good records of building permits that helped out a lot. And then they looked at the fire station itself, our department, our deployment, our operations, to see if there was any deficiencies, what we're doing good, what we're doing bad. They did identify a couple small things. We've already taken care of that. They also did the fire station location analysis. They used GIS mapping, took into account our high risk target areas, our call volume, and put together a couple different options for station locations. One of the things you're going to keep coming across if you read the report are different time benchmarks. Okay, and one of them they're going to talk about a lot is travel time, and that is from the second we get in the truck, the timer starts to when we get on the scene. There's pros and cons to using travel time because it eliminates a couple other times that are very important. And I've outlined that on the last page, and we'll go over that in a little bit. We like to go off of total response time or reflex time, and that is from the second somebody calls 911 to when we get on scene. It's a much better portrayal, if you will, of
the customer's
we can't
perspective, right?
that time.
The customer is the person that needs you.
So out of the times we look at, there's only one that we control, and that's turnout time. And that's the time it takes for us when the bell goes off to get on the truck. We meet our benchmarks on that proudly every month. So that's something we drill down on the guys and crews. They know that that time is essential for us to get out there. It's the only one that we can change. It's the only one that we can affect. So what they did through all this in the maps, we'll go over that. It goes really by road miles. So if you look at the maps, it's not going to give you a bird's eye radius. It's going to give you these weird polygons. And that's because we can't drive through a field to get to where we're going, unfortunately. So you might look at an area on one of these maps and go, man, that should be green. But keep in mind, there's no side streets. We're not a gridded community, meaning we don't have true grids, north, south, east, west. We have to take a long ways around things sometimes to get to where we're going. So what did the report show? Okay. They showed that there is a performance gap for fire and EMS travel times, total response times, which are greater than the criteria that we're judged by. The criteria we're judged by is NFPA, National Fire Protection Association, and also ISO, which is what the insurance companies pull from. The primary explanation for those deficiencies is the fact that we're covering now almost 54 square miles out of one, we'll call it a central location, but it's really not in one. The fact of the matter is we just can't get to where we need to go fast enough because it's too big. So what they discovered, they had a couple different recommendations that we said in the report. We agree with one of them, we kind of agree with another. I'll get into that here in a second. A fire station was recommended at Wilson Road in 37, which is right by where we have the donated land from North Star. So it'd be right in front of the water tower there on Wilson Road. It's right in the middle of one of our major hotspots where we're seeing a lot of growth. You guys know that area really well because you have some projects that could be taking place over there as well. It's when we analyze our monthly stats, that is a huge bright spot on our heat mapping. And we know now that we're taking over a third of our runs up on the west side of the district anyways. One of the things people may consider when they look at that spot and say that might not be in the right spot is we've got the hotels down there, high daytime populations, the outlet mall, constant truck traffic. We all know that. We all sit there trying to get on 71. And what a lot of people I think forget is back behind Chipotle is the North Lake Reserve, which is several hundred houses that is still under construction. We are starting to get calls back there. We're starting to get calls in the apartments, go to hotels pretty frequently. So that whole area is just starting to boom. Like I said, you guys have a huge project going on over there, hopefully, fingers crossed. I'm a big fan of that one. And that's going to impact that as well. So the other thing that they talked about was possibly a third station in Trenton Township near North County Road 605 and Murphy Road. While Trenton is a very small part of our call volume right now, we all know what's happening out towards the southeast side with that big beast called Intel. We know they've been talking to all the different communities, and we expect Trenton to start developing from the south end up. So that station, while that's not an immediate need right now, that's something that we need to start keeping a track of. While we used to think maybe it could be a 10-year project, it's probably going to be a 5-year project, depending on how that project goes over there and how the housing continues to develop. We did just get our first 2 very small sub-development plans for Trenton Township, and that's the first we've seen in quite a few years. So that could be starting to hit. Where we were thinking is we can make this work with a 3-station configuration. If we shift that Trenton station to a little bit more southern location, which would be Longshore and 37. If we move that station to Longshore and 37 and keep the current station where it's at, Station 1, because they did recommend possibly moving our current station. Not a fan of that. We can still accomplish what we need if we would ultimately shift that station, with that east station a little bit further south, because it gives us better response time into that area that's going to develop and also into Galena. We're pretty close to our metrics for Galena right now, but that change in location would definitely help that and still keep our main station centered where it is right now, which is where we need it. So their recommendations when you talk to the fire chiefs is start planning for the station now, for the one at Wilson Road. Quite honestly, my opinion, we're several years behind already. This is something that we should have started several years ago. A couple of us just sat through a conference, a class that had to do specifically with fire station construction, and we'll go through some of the time frames here shortly. They're pretty extended now. In total, we're 2 to 2.5 years if we start the process today for moving into that facility. So we're not keeping up with the growth. So their recommendation, like I said, start Station 2, that process immediately. And then with the price of land, and we all know that's not getting any cheaper, we need to scope out a piece of land right now for Trenton and secure that. Like I said, whether we develop in 5-10 years, it's yet to be seen. We'll figure that out as we go, keeping track of everything. But land's just going to get more expensive. So very rough estimates construction-wise. Okay, we've already done a couple needs assessments for square footage of what we would need in the facility. The current facility that we're in, even though we did a remodel a couple of years ago, we are completely maxed out on space. I'm maxed with the number of people I can sleep. I've got lockers in places that lockers probably shouldn't be. We're flat out of space. My Port Fire Prevention officer, she's got blueprints stacked every which way you can imagine, taking up different rooms. And so we're out of space. So the plan would be that station stays as it is. We would make a new headquarters. So we would need what we estimate 15,000 to 17,000 square foot. And right now, the average cost per square foot for a fire station is $385 to $450. So you're looking anywhere from $5.5 million to almost $7 million to construct a new building. We are saving money, and that's not counted into that figure because we are getting a land donation. What we've been told is that land right now, it's just under 4 acres, could be valued at about $500,000, which is a big cost savings. So obviously, we're going to continue to work with North Star and Nationwide Mobility to secure that land. And then we have to look at some staffing. We know that when we do that, we're going to have to add staffing. We're looking at it now. We've looked to add probably 6 full-time firefighters. That would secure a good cache of full-time personnel at each station. And then we would supplement and continue to supplement with our part-time staff. We've got a great part-time staff. It is getting harder to get them, but we've been pretty fortunate to be able to hang out a pretty good part-time staff. So salaries, benefits, pensions, contractual overtime, stuff like that would increase our payroll about $750,000 a year. We would also need to expand our command staff. That's something we need to do now, quite honestly. That's something I'll be talking to you guys about in a couple of weeks. Span of control for supervisor and subordinates is usually 3 to 5. Right now I'm 1 to 6. I'm too high. We need to put another officer on shift now. The goal would then be able to split those officers when the other station opens up, so we'd have a command officer at each station. Like we talked about timeline, very rough estimates, but it takes about 12 months now to do RFQs for architects and construction managers, and then to go through the planning and design phase. 1 to 2 months for the bid process. And then they had on there, and I'll disagree with this, the supply order, they're saying it's taking 1 to 2 months. I know for a fact, Camping World, serious delays in getting steel right now. And if you do get steel, when you go to put windows in, there's a huge glass shortage, I've been told as well. So that can really extend all this stuff out. So once again, then 12 to 18 months for construction is putting us anywhere from 25 to 32 months to occupy a building. However, fire stations are typically designed to be a 40 to 50-year building before we need very substantial major improvements. So the last couple of pages of this map, the first graphic you see there, that's just our existing station with some different response times, travel times outlined, and there's a little key at the top there. So you can see we are starting to reach out into some of these extended areas. And then on the back page there, and we'll come back to these as you reference these other ones, is where we would like to see the station. So the proposed station at Wilson and 37, keeping our current station, and then the one at Longshore and 37. The one at Longshore and 37, that is not depicted on this map with the travel times. Keep that in mind, okay? If we run this through the map again, which we'll have the fire chiefs do, this whole southern half will start turning green, okay? So if we go on to the single page here that I've got for you, I went over those times a little bit more with you, the response time. So processing time, that's the time it takes when somebody calls 911 until that dispatcher sets our tones off and gives us the information. Turnout time we talked about, that's from when the bell goes off till we get on the truck. Total travel time then is from when the wheels roll and we get on scene, and then you have your reflex time, your total response time, and that is the whole kit and caboodle. When somebody calls 911, there's a problem, so help arrives. Some of the benchmarks right now. Our goals, we strive for 90% compliance to be on scene. Total response time, 7 minutes and 6 seconds. I know that might be a little bit weird at a time, but in this first one under fire, it breaks that down because it accounts for all those different times. So processing time has to happen in a certain time frame. Turnout time has to happen with a certain time frame. And then travel time, the standard is they want you travel time 4 minutes or less. We know that that's not possible. So 100% compliance, nobody can meet 100% compliance all the time, but we strive for that 90. What the study found is that we're barely hitting 70. That's on fire runs. For EMS runs, it's a little bit worse. It was about 65%. So I know you may be saying we don't run an ambulance, and you're right, we don't run an ambulance. However, we first respond. And many times when we arrive on scene, it could be 30 seconds to minutes before an ambulance, and that just has to do with where the call would be. If the ambulance crew is a little bit slower getting out the door than us, and depending on if a medic unit is tied up. So there are a lot of times we are on scene providing basic life support or advanced life support before EMS arrives. The reasons those timeframes are set out, and it goes into a lot of detail in the report. For fires, there's a certain point in time where you're no longer savable and your house is no longer savable. And that's just a fact. This fire doubles or triples in size in such short time frames now because of the lightweight construction and all the synthetic materials and glues that are used. Houses go up a lot faster now than they did 25 years ago. I'll say 30 years, 35 years ago. I keep forgetting. We're all getting old. EMS, you're dealing with different metrics because you're dealing with cardiac muscle death and brain damage. Those things are irreversible after 6 to 8 minutes. 100% mortality, you're dead. So if we don't get there, somebody's not doing CPR, we don't defibrillate you, you're dead. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. So, like I said, it's not so much, a lot of people look at call volume. You know, call volume is going up. The report's a little misleading because COVID was a weird thing and our call volume dropped. 21, our call shot right back up. In 22, we are on record pace to wipe 21 off the record books. We just had our busiest month of July, which surpassed our busiest month of June. So it's like every month's just building. So calls are coming and they're going to keep coming, you know, just based on population and growth. So what I wanted to do is give you a little bit of a representation. Each page is one of the communities. Okay, Berkshire, Sunbury, Trenton, Galena. We have each community broken down into tons of little zones, and we track all of these zones independently because we want to know how we're doing, say in the Gardens area or in Prairie Run or over in Summerwood Lakes in Berkshire Township. We want to know how long is it taking us to get there really. We have an idea, but we need to be able to track these things. So they're all broken down here for you. And what I want you to keep in mind are those travel times, that's 7 minutes, 6 seconds. And take a look through these and see where we're not making notes. Right now, the only place that we're really getting really good response times, City of Sunbury. Galena's close, but Berkshire and Trenton are not. Now, the times for Sunbury could change here in the next few years because we're going to start throwing developments out west, and that's going to have an impact on our overall service time to the city. So keep that in mind as we go. Like I said, this is a really, really high view of this. I encourage you to read the report. It's going to take a little bit to get through. It's 80-something pages long. But the information is good. And there's nothing new or shocking in this report. It's stuff we've known, but it helps confirm what we've been thinking all along. So Tim wanted me to come tonight, see if you guys had any questions for me. Any feedback you have, we're open to that. And opinions, whether you feel this is needed or it's not. We're kind of gauging everybody to see where you're at, because eventually we are going to have to go back to the public for more money. We're not funded from any of the communities. We're 100% levy. So there's only enough in the pot for certain things. We've done a good job of saving, but that's going typically towards capital improvement in vehicles. We're looking at a couple different options to build the building. We don't know if we would have to do a bond or go back to the public. There's a couple really good financing options available. The latest of which is from Delaware County. They actually just financed a fire station for Liberty Township and Tri-Township, which is pretty comparable and pretty good rates compared to everybody else out there now too. So we're looking into that. We'd only like to go back to the voters once, and that would be more for an additional operating levy for staffing and operating costs. But that's yet to be determined. We'll have to see as we go further in the process. So, any questions for me right now? I know I got everybody's head spinning.
I have a couple questions, if you don't mind, Chief. Thank you. And thanks for this information. It's very informative. And looking at the map, so I know the green, the red, and the yellow. Is the proposed station out by 71 in North Star? Yeah. Is that because of the density? Is that why versus the call time? Because if you look at Trenton, you see a lot more yellow and red, but I'm assuming
because of the density. It's also because of what's there hazard-wise.
Okay.
When you start getting into hotels,
yeah,
you start getting into really strong life safety hazards.
Right.
High-rise fires, I have been unfortunate to fight a few in my day, and they are
Yeah.
way more taxing than a traditional fire. You're dealing with stretching hoses, it takes personnel.
Yeah.
You're stretching off of standpipe systems.
Yeah.
There's ladders that need to be thrown and rescued. So, and at any, sometimes those hotels are empty.
Right.
Other days, like the power outages we had a couple weeks ago, and this is packed. You know, so yeah, it's all those kind of combined. Trenton doesn't have that density yet.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. And then really the only other, two more questions. Sorry. The 130,000 was his annual salary for the new staff. That includes the benefits, the pension.
Correct.
That's there. That's not
And
just
that's an
salary.
average.
That's
So
everything.
they're on a 3-year scale.
Yeah.
So that's an average of their annual salary and then the breakdown of all their
Gotcha.
associated benefits. Correct.
And then just the last question, and this is asking you to predict the future, but do you see any issue with recruiting 6 additional firefighters in today's environment? I know police is, across the board struggling.
I don't think so. So
Okay.
we've been pretty fortunate. Our retention is pretty good. Actually, I shouldn't say pretty good. For full-time, our retention is outstanding. Part-time, average life expectancy of a part-timer is about 1.2, 1.3 years.
Okay.
That being said, though, we expect that because all these young men and women want a full-time job.
Mhm.
So they're going to go where they can get that job. And that's part of having part-time employees that we all go through,
Right.
including police. I'm sure they lose people full-time jobs all the time. However, whenever we have application periods, we've been pretty fortunate. We usually have a pretty sizable stack of applicants. It's not something I see a problem with in the next year or two, but after that, the way the public safety is going, it's going to continue to be a struggle. And we'll hit that point eventually.
Thank you very much. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Chief, can you remind me again? I'm pretty sure you said this. Where does your benchmark for response time come from? I know you have your own
So
internal.
there's two. So NFPA,
Okay.
that sets benchmarks for, there's 2 different standards. One's for career fire departments and one's for volunteer fire departments.
Right.
We fall under the career because we're no longer a volunteer agency. The thing with NFPA is it's not law, it's not code, it's recommendations. However, that's what we're held to. When things go bad and people have to swear oaths and testify, that's the standard that you're held to. The other one is ISO. ISO looks more at road miles. They want an engine company within 1.5 miles, and they want a ladder company within 2.5 miles. We do have different ISO maps that were not included in this report. If you're interested, I can get them to you. But it kind of shows the same thing. When you put the 1.5 mile, 2.5 mile polygons on here, they line up pretty well with what we're seeing. If that helps.
Yes, that does. Answer my question. Thank you.
Yeah, ISO standards are like the backbone of, I'll say, the insurance agency building actuarial models. I mean, so it's saying, hey, if you live this far away, you should be able to have fire service. Therefore, overall, maybe lower premiums, you have fire hydrants, things like that. I mean,
And not every insurance company uses them. They fell out of favor for a little bit. They are starting to kind of come back now.
What is that response time supposed to be for the NFPA standard?
Travel times under 4 minutes,
Under 4 minutes?
4 or under, and total response time. So from 911 call, thus on scene, 7 minutes, 6 seconds.
very high level, 2 new stations is going to cost about $10 million.
Correct.
Okay. You don't have $10 million in the bank. I just want to be really frank. I know we're also on record, and I also know that we're talking about your boss's perspective here. But you said, the first thing you said is the board was pretty resistant to the study. I mean,
not to the study.
the recommendation.
Not even really recommendation. The initial conversations. So from 19 through 20 until we engaged the Ohio fire chiefs, the board's been a little split and conflicted over, do we really need to do this? You know, we did have some opinion that there wasn't much growth happening. And sometimes
Who said that? No, I'm just-
That's a sure question, sir. And sometimes it's hard for people to grasp that things are changing. I get it.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I came from an area that it's built, it's developed. The whole county, there's no growth. This is different. This is the fastest growing in the state. That's been the case since I came down here, probably before.
Right.
You know,
And then and I think I heard you say you're looking at ways to finance the capital through potentially cash on hand, revenue projections, so you could bond through potentially like the Delaware County Finance Authority or something, which I think that's a great avenue to go for. But back to John's point, I think he's asking, you know, that then comes the people, right? And a minimum of 6 people, but it's really going to be more. And what you would be asking the voters for is really the operating levies to operate this new station, pending that you can work out all the details on the capital.
correct.
Okay. And the board right now, I guess just their position in general is they're going to take this under advisement, use it as a data point, redo the study in 3 years. What is going to happen with this? Is this going to sit on a shelf and we'll hear again?
Where this is, well, it can't sit on a shelf.
Can't sit on a shelf.
There's no way.
Right.
There's too many problems to sit on a shelf.
Right. What can we help with?
So really what we're looking for is, you know, support. When it comes time for a vote, would we have the support of the city, of council, of the services committee, so that Tim can make an educated decision and, you know, cast his vote how the city would like it cast. And that's kind of why we're giving this. We're talking to everybody, making sure the information gets out so that when the fire board makes a vote to say, yes, we're moving forward, let's start looking at architects and engineers, and start the process that we have consensus.
I'll speak for me. I support the fire department. I also support that you're an independent entity, but one that's governed by 4, you know, sovereign entities. And I think you guys will figure this out. I think there's a mathematical equation, there's a forecasting equation, and then there's, you know, the experts that have said, this is what we highly recommend you do. And I agree with you. It can't sit on the shelf. I mean, people's lives are literally in your hands.
Correct.
So I don't know how you sell that to your board. We obviously have representation there to help you with that.
Any other questions, anybody?
I just like to say I concur and say this about the police department, but that is, you know, community is only going to grow and stay a great community if people feel safe. Safety is a baseline need for residents, and if you don't feel like your fire department can get to you in time, then you don't feel safe. So I agree, I fully support and see Sunbury growing rapidly, and we got to keep pace with that growth. So
Appreciate it. Thank you.
absolutely.
All right. If anybody has any questions, please seriously call me. Shoot me an email, come back for coffee, and we can go over it more.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Appreciate it.
All right, and with that, we're going to move on to unfinished business. And Let's Avenue Repairs. Apparently, we have a contractor recommendation.
Still trying to connect with Dale a little bit on that. I guess at this point, I just wanted to ask, you know, what's the feeling on just moving forward with that repair that we have 2 bids on already and one low bid there as far as taking care of that one collapsed section. It's not fully collapsed. It's just has a crack in the crown of the pipe. So there was some additional work done, which really didn't prove any substantial findings. So, you know, it is $30,000 in my opinion for a point repair. It's pretty expensive. We can continue to look for another contractor to obtain a price. It's been difficult to find a contractor right now to come in and do that. So we could look a little bit harder. Just wanted to throw that open question out to see if anybody's thought about it further. Or
I think we're obligated to do something. I'd support moving forward on this. I think you've done yeoman's work to get us to this point. Right? The bids are coming in as they are. We're also obligated to, I mean, we know there's an issue. And I think we're now on the hook for the repair, right?
I mean, if it'll save money, I'll come out with a shovel. I can help dig it up. That's fine, but, yeah, absolutely. We need to take care of the people that live up there. Make sure we don't have flooding issues.
Yeah, and broad brush picture. We've got the funds available. We're trying to get the best deal and make the best use of our dollars. We're also in a situation where we've got limited bids and we know there's a problem. So I think we're kind of forced to act. You agree?
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just maybe a motion approval at council to move forward with that up to a certain amount. I think the bids were in the low 30s, so you might want to go above that, just to,
Like 15% contingency or something.
something like that. Yeah.
Right, they didn't include the asphalt maintenance or the asphalt repair.
So maybe up to 50,000 would be a good placeholder. So let's put that to bed and move on.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Look at that. We checked some-
Yeah, I know, it's check the only thing off that was under unfinished tonight. Okay, some additional updates, 2022 street maintenance program. I know they're working on the bricks out there right now, right? Yeah, I don't know who to look at.
They've actually finished the bricks.
Oh, okay.
Just, probably an hour ago or an hour and a half. Those repairs were done. What we found when, we had the inspector walk with the contractor and mark what they felt needed to be repaired. Brad and I went out and did that also. That allowed us, we had some extra quantities of brick repair. So we were able to kind of use that money to do a few other things. One was we did a number of sections on Walnut Street.
Nice job on that. I've actually gotten 3 phone calls on that saying thank you.
They're happy.
And not the gentleman that's been coming in for the past couple of years. Like, thank you. I never thought this would get done. And I was like, I was staff.
I think we're just gonna attack that street as, we'll have a whole street there repaired eventually. But we did make some significant progress on the worst sections there. And the sections that were really failing, like along the berm and things that were just, if we didn't do anything, they'd be twice as bad next year and 4 times as bad the year after. So we're able to do that. We're able to get some catch basins rebuilt that Brad had on his list, 2 of them. We were able to work on the section of East Granville here where if you turned on the street, you'd see the stop bar and the crosswalk were like a wave. The pavement was slipping down the road. So we're able to mill that off, hopefully get it to adhere. And we had a couple other areas along the street there where one was a sewer repair that just, it needed fixed again. And let's see, so we're able to get some extra stuff done with just touching into the contingency. I believe Kintner is done. It was done today. Tomorrow, weather permitting, and they don't get an emergency call, MP Dory is coming in to reestablish the loop. So we'll get that fixed hopefully tomorrow. And what else? Columbus Street, I was kind of concerned. There was one area where I thought we might hit some bad base down there. We didn't, so they were able to get that done without any contingencies. And other than paint, which is August 12th, they're done. They must have, yeah.
Just in time for school, huh?
Yeah, I don't know that they've done the catch basins yet. That's probably where the concrete crew that works on bricks also works on concrete catch basins. So that's probably their next destination this week, weather permitting. So.
We're gonna get a lot of accolades from the bus drivers for Prairie Run High School, the bus garage. I think that was a really good move on Kintner. Nice job. Nice job overall, despite it's never enough. Despite that, really nice job on executing the contracting, the bids out, securing a contractor, holding them accountable, doing the most with what you, like the dollar allowed you to do. I think this is probably the most creative MacGyver-ish year we've ever had. It's a really nice job by many.
I do, you know, the brickwork kept getting pushed. We'd anticipated it at a certain time. I do apologize that we kind of had to do some, and actually if somebody sees a no parking sign, if they read the dates, they knew they could park there, but they read the no parking stuff and move on. But
right.
It's done, and that's the important part.
Great work.
All right, staffing update for wastewater treatment.
How about if I start with services? We did make a job offer, and a person currently in the services / wastewater industry in a surrounding community has accepted the position and will start on the 15th. And with wastewater, we posted the job.
Yeah, so we've posted the opportunity. The deadline is August 15th. We have already received at least one response. Hopefully we'll get a little bit more interest, but that's to fill that 4th position over at the plant.
And then the last item I have is street sweeping, due to happen week of August 29th.
Yeah, so we had talked about this at the last meeting, so it's still on for August 29th. You had asked what time we would be expecting them in town. We did confirm it'll be during normal business hours, so not too early in the morning. They'll allow sort of rush hour to pass before they're doing too much street cleaning there. They are trying to be sensitive to the day that the waste hauler is in town as well, so there may be a little bit of adjustment of the schedule based on that. They anticipate that this first cleaning probably takes essentially a week to do, because they may have to go back and they will go back and do a few streets a couple of times.
Okay.
Yep.
And if I could just mention the pavement contractor striping company, I've been in contact with them. I'm trying to coordinate their mobilization to come to do the striping for the repaving projects, with doing some other striping. We've got a list. I'm going to send that to him tomorrow. He'll generate a cost, and then we'll see. But
Good idea.
and that would be August 12th if those stars align properly. So.
All right. All right.
I think we skipped new business.
Oh, yeah, I guess I didn't mention it. Does anybody have any new business?
John Grumman?
Thank you.
I don't have any.
Nope. I do.
That's why you brought it up.
So I'm advocating for Brad in the services department related to gators. So think gators are, if you've ever been to one of our festivals, they're the green little carts that sometimes pick up trash, but Brad uses those on a daily basis. Currently we have 3. 2 of them are about 15 years old. One's dedicated to the cemetery. The second one was our old, I'll call it like our watering gator, you know, the one we took around and watered plants, did weed eating and all that type of stuff. That one's really bad shape. Brand new, they're about 11 grand. This one needs probably about 5 grand worth of repairs to make it roadworthy again. It's probably on the high end. We do have a third one that is about 2 years old and it's in good shape, and it's like our new watering one. The one that I would say is roadworthy. Is that fair? So Brad and I talked about this. He got a quote on a new one, got a quote on a very lightly used one. So it's about a 25% reduction in cost if it's got like 100 hours on it. 100 hours is pretty low hours, lightly used. Around $9,000 for a lightly used one. And I just told him that I support, going ahead and purchasing that, securing it. Somebody's got one right now, and this isn't me flaunting, but I think I have the authority to authorize the purchase. I just wanted to make sure that everybody was on board with the gator situation. It's been a hot topic lately with our festivals and things. So I think we're trying to beef up our gator fleet a little bit. One thing I think Brad is going to try to do with the number 2, the old one, get it drivable, maybe not get it, street worthy. And then maybe $1,000, $1,500 put into it, get the alignment fixed, the bumper, the whatever else is broken. And I think we're going to get that to the wastewater treatment plant. So kind of doing, we're actually adding one, fixing one, and taking the fixed one and moving it over to the wastewater treatment plant. So Dale can haul stuff around on his property that doesn't necessarily require a truck. Is that all good?
Yeah, Dale's use is just within his fenced area, but, well, we've been down there. It's, a ways if you're got a hose on your shoulder and you're walking across the whole distance. So yeah, for mowing purposes, for moving light loads, I'm sure he'd be glad to have that added to his fleet.
Yeah, guys.
So we end up with 3 at streets and 1 at wastewater?
Yeah. Yeah, and one is probably primarily streets department, but it's dedicated to the cemetery. I think like it's used ad hoc, but pretty frequently for plywood movement and things that you would need in a cemetery.
So can I ask a question? Because it's $2,000 more, we're thinking about long-term. Does it make any more sense to buy something new? I mean, I know you're saving 2 on a price, but does it make, I know 100 hours isn't a ton of hours, but I'm just thinking down the road, does it make more sense to buy something brand new, might be under warranty, might have something with it versus and spend that extra 2 than buy one that, I don't know.
I'll put it this way. Brad probably overthinks this a little bit, but he's also done this so many times that I think there's enough of the $2,000. Sometimes it's a $10,000 savings. In this case, he was the one who said, listen, it may take a little bit to get this $11,500 one in. I can get one today for $9,200 and it's very lightly used. He goes, nothing wrong with the body. I think it was used on a golf course. It's got a couple dings in the side. In this particular case, I think Brad is highly recommending the lightly used one for availability, cost savings, and he's just a very prudent guy, which is good. Sometimes he overthinks it though. No offense, Brad. You're a great guy. I talk to him pretty frequently.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Any other new business?
2, but it's unfinished. 2023 streets program. I think we need to start talking really probably hard numbers here pretty soon in terms of investment and probably start targeting some streets. Does that sound about right, Wes, Steve, Daryl? 2023 streets program. We should start coming up with firm dollars, grants amount versus loan amount, and start narrowing down the streets.
Yes, and I did double check that OPWC deadline after the date for the deadline, and it's actually November 4th.
November, okay.
So we have a little bit of wiggle room there. So
Still might be a good idea that in our September services meeting, we've got like recommendation from staff, and then October, we're nailing it down if you're good with that.
any thoughts there more from anybody just driving around or looking at different streets? I know we talked about Miller Drive as being, and that actually would score well because the higher the traffic count, it does get looked at a little bit.
I don't know about specific streets. I could make a list, but I think we've got a pretty good list on the CIP to start with, and the robotics. I'm more interested in the dollars invested out of pocket that gives us nearly a sure chance that we're going to get some sort of coupon, 25% addition. And if that means we carve out $700,000 to get $1 million street program next year, I guess that's the part that I want to nail down soon.
Figure out what we're looking at so that we can make a plan.
Yeah. Maybe like best guess, what's the targeted dollar amount?
For grant, you probably want to stay in the 300,000 range for a grant request would be my recommendation.
Maybe something like a 500,000 cash, $200,000 loan, $300,000 grant,
Yeah.
something like that.
Right.
Because we get points for the loan, right?
Yes.
No pre-penalty payment.
Loan to be about 25% of the total request, yeah, so that would be close, yeah.
I'm using really rough numbers. If you guys could come forward with a proposal at the next meeting, I think then we can start saying $1 million program equals this. If we don't get the grant, it's 700,000 or something. Here's the streets that you recommend. Sorry, I'm rapid firing this. And then stormwater utility, I think we talked about having that on the agenda either on an ongoing basis or there's some level of work going on.
That's where it was on the agenda earlier.
Well, it was. Wes and I talked a little bit about it. I think we felt like we'd be more ready at the next meeting.
Okay.
We're putting together an outline of next steps and procedure there, so
Okay.
stay tuned.
Thanks, Dave. All right, anything else for good of the order? All right, then I will move to adjourn. Second by Joe St. John. Roll call.
All right, let me get this right this time. Mr. Capel,
Yes.
Mr. St. John,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mr. Neff.
Yes.
We are adjourned.
Mr. Damon works.
Sorry.